Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday. First of all, I want to thank you. I've been out of commission 3-4 weeks. I had a terrible fall, terrible accident, but there's a lot worse. And I will tell you, when I look at these wounded warriors, when I look at our friend Joey, trust me, there's a lot worse. People fall every day. But I do want to thank you, but I do want to move on. We're on a mission here. And I want to tell you something. I've had a lot of time to think. That's the American flag behind me right there. That's not a joke. That's not a Marxist Islamist symbol to burn, to trash our country. This was part of the 5th Marine Division that landed on Iwo Jima. See that man there? That was my grandfather. He also fought in Guam and he survived. See this? That's my father. 17 years old, joined the Army Air Corps. They fought for that flag right there. When I watch what's going on our streets, even this past few days when Benjamin Netanyahu spoke of the United Nations, Palestinian flags, they're carrying the flags of Hamas and Hezbollah. They're burning the American flag. They're burning the Israeli flag. They have the Israeli flag with the swastika on it. And it's not a few people, thousands of thousands. What the hell has happened to our country under Biden and Harris? We need to step back and take a look. All we hear about are the polls, our latest polls, the hot polls. Where are we in Arizona? Where are we in Timbuktu? I don't care. The polls are not going to determine the outcome of this election. You are. You are. That flag is sacred. That flag has been carried into wars. Men have died to raise that flag. That flag represents the millions who've come before us, who have created this country, who has defended this country. They've defended it from Nazis. They defended it from Tojo. They defended it for 200 years in hellholes all over the world, in Vietnam, in Korea, right now, special forces in Africa, in Southeast Asia. And we have these punks come into our country. Who are these people? Were they raised to love terrorists? Were they raised to love Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran? But worse than them is this damnable Biden-Harris administration. This damnable Biden-Harris administration. We're a country that have had great presidents. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant. We've had great presidents who brought us through the worst of times, world wars, a civil war, riots, domestic unrest. What do we have now? We have a man who's incapacitated. We all know it. His own party even knows it. His media even knows it. He's still sitting there as commander-in-chief. We have a vice president who's the most unqualified, buffoonish, economically illiterate, anti-American, anti-free market individual ever to be one step away from the Oval Office, and I'm to believe 50% of the American people, as I sit here tonight, are seriously considering putting her in the Oval Office? Why? What has she done? Who the hell is she? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to lose our country. Matter of fact, we are losing our country. Why did I show you those photos of my parents, my grandfather and my father? I today, as a Jew, cannot walk down the streets of New York with the kippah, with a Star of David, or any Jewish identification without being assaulted. Without being assaulted. When did that start? It started during this administration. Anti-Semitism is becoming enshrined in our society, in our media, our despicable, contemptible media that hides behind the First Amendment, that hides behind this Constitution, as it burns it, as it shreds it, as it destroys it, as it throws in on freedom of the press with the Democrat Party, as the Democrat Party becomes the umbrella organization for the Marxists and the Islamists and all the reprobates, the Jew haters, the Christian haters, and the American haters. That's what that party has become. It's always been a party of hate, from slavery to segregation to eugenics to Jim Crow, and it has never stopped. Look what's going on today. Look at our border. There are women who are missing by the hundreds of thousands, being sold into sex slavery, enriching Mexican terroristic drug cartels who are in collusion with the communist Chinese. Where are these women? Where are they? Nobody even asks. Now, that's not a natural disaster like Hurricane Helen. This is a man-made disaster. We haven't seen human trafficking and slavery like this since the end of the damn Civil War. And it's happening right under our noses. Biden doesn't even talk about it. Harris goes to the border for a photo op. She's in charge of the damn thing. And then she pretends, oh, we have this legislation, American, bipartisan legislation. Have you read it? Tell me, has anybody in the media, any news organization told you what's in that bill? You know what that bill does? It enshrines 90% of what's going on in the border today. It will not end sex trafficking. It will not end up to 2 million illegal aliens coming into this country every year. And I'm not even counting gotaways. It enshrines catch and release. They come across the border, you catch them, you release them into the United States. You're not able to vet them. It's not like there's computer information on somebody coming out of Venezuela. Why doesn't Kamala Harris care about sex slavery? She talks about abortion until she's blue in the face. Why, is abortion an issue in this country? Is abortion an issue in this country? Sex slavery is an issue in this country. And she and Biden have caused it. 325,000 children are missing. 325,000 little kids. It brings tears to your eye. They are missing. Where are they? Where the hell are they? They're in our country. Where? Who has them? Oh, they're missing. Next story. Did you see the poll in Arizona? Screw the poll in Arizona. These are news organizations. Why aren't they finding out? Where are these kids? That's what Biden and Harris have done. I don't care about their photo ops. They're phony bipartisan legislation that'll do nothing. These are sound bites, and their media run with it. And nobody even looks behind the screen. It is a failed bill. It is a disastrous bill. That's why not a single Republican in the House supported it, and only 3 Republicans in the... I'm going to sign bipartisan... Who cares? You're the damn Vice President of the United States. Oh, no. I have no responsibility. Remember Harry Truman? Now, there was a Democrat. There was a president. He's no Joe Biden. He had a sign on his desk. The buck stops here. You'll never see that sign on Biden's desk, and you sure as hell will never see it on Kamala Harris's desk. You'll never see it. But it's even worse. 100,000 American citizens dying every year from fentanyl, the material provided by communist China, produced by the drug cartels flowing into our country. We lost 60,000 men and women in the Vietnam War in over 10 years. Horrendous. We lose 100,000 innocent American civilians every damn year because that damn border is open. Because Joe Biden opened it. Because Kamala Harris opened it. Because they want more and more people coming into this country who burn the American flag. Oh, what did he say? You're damn right. You're damn right. It's one thing to have a real immigration system, a legal system with requirements, but it's quite another to do this. There's not another country on the face of the earth, democratic, fascistic, or Marxist, that has a border open like we do. Not one. This election is between the ruling class and the American people. Half of us know it. Half of us don't. Half of us never will, because they're so committed to party. They're so subject to propaganda from the media and the Democrats and the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent, given to these campaigns by these Democrat Party oligarchs who think everything's just fine. They're making out great. Let's keep talking about the middle class. Let's keep talking about an opportunity economy from the most illiterate individual to ever run for president about anything, who can't complete sentences, who can't even express a thought. Holistic. What, are you smoking marijuana? What the hell are you talking? Holistic. Opportunity society. What the hell do you think capitalism is? An opportunity society. You and your buddy Bernie Sanders centralized iron-fisted government decision-making by an incompetent ruling class in Washington, D.C. They want more power. That's all they care about. They're power hungry. They don't care about the price of food or the price of oil. They don't care about the price of a damn thing. Don't you understand? It's the private sector. We have to crush businesses. We have to hunt down billionaires. And you people, you just use too much energy. And one day, we're going to have even days and odd days for gasoline, and you're not allowed to buy automobiles that use gasoline. No, we'll show you. You're to use electric vehicles. I can't afford them, and we don't care. They don't give a damn. And yet they pretend that they represent you. They don't represent you. They're destroying your life. They're destroying your lifestyle. They're destroying your country. And they have a massive media propaganda operation, as all tyrannies do. We even have people in the media who are not just celebrating Harris, they're speaking for her. Oh, here's what she meant to say. To be perfectly honest with you, she sounds dumber than Joe Biden. She speaks more gibberish than he does. The idea that this country was founded through free speech, through debate, through competition. Twice at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Debate over the Declaration of Independence. Debate over the Constitution. Can you imagine? These geniuses. They read history. They knew the ancients, the philosophers. They knew what was going on in Europe. I don't know if Kamala Harris has visited Europe yet. I do know she hasn't visited Israel as vice president. I'll get to that in a minute. Can you imagine your ancestors, your grandparents and great-grandparents looking at this election and listening to Kamala Harris, who can't complete sentences? Now the whole world sees what we see. Her supporters see what we see. Her donors see what we see. The grifters and operators and pollsters and hangers-on, the leeches of our society, trying to embed her in the White House. They know exactly what's going on. And they're running a campaign that is the most diabolical, deceptive campaign in American history. She's not proudly running on her beliefs. She's a radical Marxist Islamist. How do we know? She's told us. Those of us who focus, those of us who listen, she hates capitalism. She likes big government socialism. She hates that you have money. She wants massive tax increases, camouflaged as taxes on the rich. She hates American industry. All you union folks out there, I don't give a damn what your union bosses say. She hates you. How do I know? Because if you're going to massively increase capital gains, you're going to destroy American industry, investment, technology, all the things that we need for new drugs, new inventions, to support our military, and they will all go overseas. They will all be pushed overseas. So the Kamala Harris economic system, okay, I'll define holistic for you. It's a holistic disaster. Illegal aliens come in and take American jobs, and American jobs also that exist after illegal aliens take those jobs are pushed overseas because our businesses are going to shrink and our economy is going to shrink. Kamala Harris' economic policy is for a massive depression. Massive depression. She's responsible for inflation. not Exxon, not some pharmacy company. Our economy's too big for one business or even one industry to have that kind of an effect on it. It's not McDonald's or Burger King. No, no, no. It's her and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. They spent $7 trillion extra dollars that they didn't need to spend. Even on my radio show, I said, you're going to blow the lid off. You're going to create inflation. And you know what? Biden wanted to spend $2 trillion more. And the House Republicans stopped them. So what do we get from them? They're Marxist claptrap. Price gouging? How come price gouging didn't exist when Donald Trump was president? How come you could afford food when Donald Trump was president? How come you could afford gas and electricity when Donald Trump was president? How come the economy was just great under Donald Trump? But all of a sudden, we need new laws. We got to get these corporations. More government, more spending, more taxes, a bigger IRS. That's tyranny. Where do they get all this power anyway? They don't get it from this, which is why they hate the Constitution. All their talk about democracy. They hate democracy. They try to fix the election so they can't lose. And when they do lose, they don't accept the outcome. When Donald Trump won, they immediately tried to criminalize the election, put him in prison, and impeached him twice. For what? You have Jamie Raskin, whose father's an old Stalinist, and he's a red too, in my view, is involved in every impeachment, pushing every criminal investigation to Donald Trump. He doesn't believe in democracy. He believes in coups against the Republican Party. Jumps to the floor of the House every time there's a Republican nominee through the Electoral College and objects. He's a leading Democrat on TV and cable, just like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders doesn't believe in democracy. How can you believe in democracy when you believe in centralized government and Marxism? Democracy is the opposite of that. Ask all those people in gulags. Ask all those people, even in national healthcare systems in Canada and Britain. Ask them what they think about socialism and Marxism and democracy, where they don't have a say in a damn thing. Nothing. We have a man who was almost assassinated 3 times, Donald Trump, a former president. Not Obama, not Clinton, not Bush, Trump. And he was hit by a bullet right in his ear. One of the efforts to assassinate him comes from a country called Iran. This administration has a very strange, almost treasonous relationship with the Islamo-Nazi terrorist regime in Iran that is responsible with its partner Hezbollah in murdering hundreds. I know all about it. The whole world knows all about it. Here's an entire study on the hijackings, on the taking of ships, on the attacking of cafes, on the attacking of our Marine barracks. This is the enemy. They're funded by Iran, like Hamas is funded by Iran. We have 30% of the United States Navy in and around the Mediterranean. And they've been given the order not to lift a finger, to take a single offensive action against Iran, no matter how many our ships are shot at, no matter how many of our sailors and soldiers are murdered, and certainly no matter what happens to Israel. You know what that is? For Biden and Harris, that's eye candy. They're using our brave men and women, our heroes, as eye candy to say, oh, wait a minute, we support Israel. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, why did Biden and Harris and Blinken lift sanctions on Iran? Tell me, why are we still giving billions of dollars to Iran? I saw Zelensky in the Oval Office. I happen to be one of those conservatives who supports Ukraine, but I see the difference. So Biden and Harris love Zelensky. They treat him with respect, but they hate Netanyahu and they treat him with contempt. They condemn Putin, but subsidize Iran that's trying to assassinate our former president and hopefully future president. While they're trying to assassinate him. That's an act of war. Don't you think Eisenhower would have seen it as an act of war? Don't you think Reagan would have seen it as an act of war? Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, John Kennedy? What the hell is going on here? They rush arms to Ukraine. They're withholding arms from Israel that's fighting, surrounded on 6 fronts, Iran and the terrorists. And the list of the arms gets longer and longer and longer. Mitch McConnell and Tom Cotton have outlined it. Hezbollah killed Marines. Hezbollah killed Americans. This administration is the most anti-American in history, anti-American military, anti-American law enforcement, anti-American citizen, anti-Semitic administration in American history. Enough with the polls. This group must be broomed out of the office, the Oval Office, or it's over.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.